Good evening, RFHL. Welcome to another podcast. Here we are, myself, you know me by now, 2.0. You got Rob the Mayor. It's Big Dogs night. I was telling him, we got the big dogs for everybody here for the game. I think a lot of people are at the Bills game driving home, and that's why it was so tough to find some people to watch. But we've also, or to record, but we've also got Austin, the rookie Austin, with us here. And I'm excited to have him because we've had a rookie already this season, I think once or twice. And it's always great to have their perspectives, get them involved, throw them in front of a camera. Austin, I'll even ask you in a little bit. I think you did a broadcast this past week, and I'd love to hear how you felt about that and how you thought that went and your experience with that. But hey, we're here. We're back. We're 7 weeks into the season, and we're just about to start with the next phase of the season, if you will. I think everybody knows you play everybody once, but there's 10 games. So now we're going to start playing the teams. We're going to have that go back around where you play the teams you've already played at least once before, which is kind of the second phase, the third act of the RFHL regular season. And hey, how does everybody feel about not only this past week's games, but the season so far for your teams? Rob, what do you think?
Well, the season's kind of gone how we hoped it would go, essentially. I mean, week one was kind of a blur, especially for me. I messed my ankle up like 40 seconds in the game, and then I tried to play most of that game, but like I don't even remember playing. I feel like I would go out there for 30 seconds and be like, this is an awful idea. And on top of that, it was like RFHL's welcoming to the 3 first-rounder rookies on your team that just absolutely lit us up. So from there on out, I feel like we just blacked out and forgot about that game. And from there on, we've been really happy with how the season's gone. We've formulated our game plans each week, and we've executed well. Even in our loss to Sarnia Sting, we walked away from that game like happy almost. And I wouldn't say happy that we lost, but we had a game plan and we stuck to it. And unfortunately, Sarnia just got the better bounces and they got the best of us. So we weren't even upset about it. Good for them. They're a good team. But other than that, I feel like we've formulated game plans, executed game plans, and we're gelling, and it feels good. And we're excited to get into these rematches, especially, I mean, I'm not going to talk about too much, but our rematch this week. And again, like I said, it was kind of a blur for all of us. So to see a team like yours that's been on fire and gelled already, and to go head to head against us, who's finally starting to, I feel like, get the crisp going. I'm excited for this second half of the season, see where we can go with it.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I am looking forward to our rematch solely for the fact that I was sad that you had what happened in our first go around happen, and I love playing against you. I love playing with you. We won the championship together. We've done the song and dance out on the floor together before, and so I was looking forward to that matchup. And then I was bummed to see that you hurt your ankle and didn't get to play. So I'm looking forward to getting back out there and getting challenged by you because I mean, let's face it, your hands and your shot have been great this season. And I think this past week you even sniped one during a game where I was on the call and I gave you the holy cow, the Tony Romo, call.
I went back and watched it, and
yeah,
because I heard you on the floor, and I was like, oh, I can't wait to go back and watch it. Like he gave me like the Rick Jenneret scream. Like I'm so stoked to watch it. You screamed so loud that you peaked your mic. Like your mic was
good.
Like, it's like it was so broken. I was like, he got so loud.
It was such a filthy goal, and I was just so ready to gas it up because it was so good. So, hey, Austin, same question, buddy. How have you felt about your season so far? How did you feel about this past week's game? And generally, how do you feel about the RFHL so far?
Yeah, so I'll start with our game last week. I believe looking at it, it was against Quest where we lost 13-7, and I kind of chopped it up to kind of being out physicaled, outbodied kind of. We have the runners, we have the people who like to stay home, and I just felt like, we already know with Furlano and Dr. K how physical they can be, and I don't think we were prepared to kind of give it back, kind of like how your team kind of gave it back 2.0 when you guys faced them. Um, Going about our overall season, we're kind of disappointed because we always have a game plan, and sometimes it seems like we can't buy a goal at times, or that sometimes we'll be in our own end for too long, and now we're all gassed on defense, and we can't change people out. And next thing you know, we get scored on, and it starts piling up when it comes to stuff like that. Um, and then about the RFHL, I know Ducky said he drank the Kool-Aid. I am too. I have all my chips on the table. I am fully committed to this. This is like, playing. I made a street hockey league with my friends in 5th grade, and we had trades, drafts, and stuff. And, this just reminds me of doing that. And I'm kind of reliving a bit of my childhood. And I'm just happy to be here, happy to make new friends since moving here in April. And yeah.
That's awesome. And I think I touched upon it already, but this past week too, I mean, you mentioned drinking the Kool-Aid and getting fully bought in. And I think you took it one step further this past week and helped out with one of the broadcasts on YouTube Live for our Wednesday night games. Tell us about that experience and what you thought about it.
Yeah, so I called, I was doing color with Bill Smith, my teammate Bill Smith, for Manitoba Moose and Good Morning Vietnam. And to begin, I know Rob knows because he was sitting next to my father who was at the game. For the first, I don't know, 10 minutes, you couldn't hear us speak. We both had earbuds in, and we could not be heard. So then we're like, all right. I just kind of ripped out my earbuds, threw them on the ground in the penalty box. I was in the far penalty box, and I'm like, I'm just gonna act like this is a phone call. And so I have my phone like this. I'm like, yeah, that was a great save, or stuff like that. And I know I said, as a crutch, and I actually talked to some of my friends who are in broadcasting about it, and they just said, just the fact that, you're already better than 95% of commentators. But it was fun because it was something I thought I was going to do as for a career because I like working in sports, but I went down the teaching route. So, as I say that, it was fun. It was great. Bill was very easy to work with. I told him not only did I feel comfortable, but I felt safe saying what I wanted to say during the broadcast. And I think that's sometimes very hard to get into that feeling. So I really have to shout out Bill for making that environment for me. Another
When you
thing
mentioned
was,
when you mentioned in the chat that you were interested, that's exactly why I tagged Bill. I said if there's anybody you're gonna, I mean, Bill practically does this for a living. You know what I mean? So if there was anybody you were gonna do it with, it was gonna be Bill. He was gonna set you up. Like it's like you guys would have been playing volleyball and you'd be the spiker and Bill would be the setter. Like Bill knows what he's
yeah,
doing. He's going to control the game, keep the pace going, and just set you up to really stick in with whatever comments you had. So, I mean, Bill was a perfect person to do your first call with, and I remember the technical difficulties your dad was telling me, and I feel like I turned into emergency tech support. Like I ran down to Bill, I joined on the call, I could hear you guys on the call. And I was trying to call Peter or text Peter. I'm like, what's going on? Like something's wrong with it. I was like, Bill, leave the call. Everybody leave the call. Start the call over. And Peter actually texted me and told me it was his fault actually. So none of you guys did anything wrong. He accidentally just had the call muted. So he said my bad. So that was just a small little hiccup. You guys did a great job on the call. So
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Rob, too, because I was gonna give you props for making sure that the mention of Bill and just being a perfect person, I think everyone would agree is kind of the he's kind of the consummate broadcaster now for the league, and having him there to kind of help Austin with his first game, or anybody else who wants to join the broadcasts for the game. There's a handful of people that are, just awesome at really kind of easing that in and really leading you in and making it comfortable and obvious when to talk, and so on and so forth. But Bill is one of them, and if not the best, he's certainly top tier, as best as you can ask for. So glad that that was an experience that you really enjoyed, Austin, and I hope that you do it again, and I hope that other people who hear that you enjoyed it and it's not so intimidating as you think, might also want to do it, because as we've talked about already, before the show started, there is contributions across the league. Everything is volunteer with all of this, really. And, whether it's doing the stats, reffing the games, doing the broadcasts, helping even set up the broadcasts with the stat sheets, there's all sorts of different stuff that goes into this. And there's a ton of different ways where anybody can contribute and have fun with it, too. The podcast is a perfect example. We, Rob, myself, other Rob 2, Rob squared, whatever we want to call those guys when they're on together, the three of us
The three R's.
Yeah, there you go. We're always looking for anyone who wants to join the podcast, because you don't need to worry about how you look or how you talk or anything like that, because really it's just a conversation with friends, and we happen to hit the record button. Everything else just kind of flows naturally. So speaking of that flow, let's actually get into those games. So we already talked a little bit about your game, Austin, that 6:30 game. Just as a quick recap for everybody else, the score was 13-7 in favor of Tribe. We saw the three stars of the game went to, it looks like, Furlano, who had 6 goals, 3 assists, and 3 blocks. And then Westgate Matt, 3 goals, 1 assist, 2 blocks. And the last star was Frankie on the Thrones with 3 goals and 3 blocks. Austin, anything else you want to add about your game and how it felt, or how you think it went against a tribe called Quest? I know you kind of talked about it already a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like Frankie was just kind of like a bull in a china shop, as always. I feel like sometimes he just starts running around everybody, just kind of, and gets physical. And, I feel like if you look at, Jake went 1-1-1 on the stat sheet, and then Bill went 1-1 goal and assist, and then Maston got a goal. Like, everyone was eating. And the way our offense work is that it's kind of like the Bills, everyone eats. So I kind of felt like that, but also I felt like we were kind of getting pressured really by Furlano and Dr. K there, just setting up in the slot and just trying to get them out of the slot kind of became a struggle a bit. I think that's kind of what contributed to the score.
I did stats for your guys' game, and it seemed like you guys had a really decent level of balance for the first half of the game. In the second period, though, it seemed like Alex just started getting lit up, not by letting in goals, but just lit up. I mean, you've seen Alex. I mean, 73 saves, whatever, a few weeks back. The kid is not big, and he's an animal in the net.
Mm-hmm.
It's just he can't allow him to just get lit up as much as he's getting lit up. And you guys did a really good job of keeping that game balanced, in my opinion, when I was doing the stats. But then in the third, as you said, the physicality just at some point you just succumb to it. And Furlano and Dr. K and even Jesse had some great moves out on the floor that day. So, and when Jesse's feeling it, you guys are anybody playing against Jesse's in trouble when Jesse's feeling it. So, and I mean, I think that just kind of took over your game, unfortunately.
It's funny you say that too, because one of the things I was thinking of immediately when I'm looking at the stat sheet for that game is that, Furlano and Dr. K are clicking. And once those guys get clicking, it's trouble. And it's wild to me that you could have a team like that and have a guy like Jesse and in one breath or in one thought be like, oh yeah, Jesse's on this team. Like it's crazy that he can fly under the radar when normally he's, part of that top two scoring tandem on a team, and he can fly under the radar on a team like that. And then of course Westgate Matt was clicking and scoring, and all of this was without Keller being out there. I see it did not play for that one, so got to watch out for teams like that when they get clicking because, I think one of the things you'll notice, Austin, if you haven't already, is that there's each team kind of has those like that 1-2 punch, so to speak, that really kind of helps drive how a team plays. And depending on how well the team around them is kind of built to play with that or adapt to it or even just feed it, is I think one of the more like nuanced elements when it comes to like drafting a team. And Brett did a good job of finding, I think, good complementary pieces to that Furlano Dr. K 1-2 punch. Because, like I said, if you've got a guy like Jesse, who's normally a top tier scorer, he's got one of the best sets of hands in the league, and is just kind of regularly like flying around out there. If he can fly under the radar for a team like that, then that's trouble. That's a lot of chemistry that could be happening. But I see a lot of that with your team too. I can touch upon the last thing I would say about your game is that um, obviously Frankie is playing his first season on the floor, so you've kind of got a rookie in Frankie, even though he's been in the league for several seasons as a goalie. So you're still also feeling that out. And Jake is a top tier scorer too. So once you find that rhythm and figure out how to get both those guys going either together or maybe separate to balance out the line changes, and then you add in, the Glenn and the Bill and all those kind of net front guys, I think you'll discover your key role on that team and really playing these teams again the second time around when you go back and play, that week one opponent now. I think that'll help your confidence a little bit because you're gonna know what to expect a little bit more, which might help you kind of loosen up a little bit when you go to play that game. And I know as a rookie, it's tough to kind of feel that way when every single week you're playing someone new and you're playing people you don't know. You don't know how they're going to attack you. But now you know. Now you've got that card in your pocket. So when you get out there, keep that confidence up and you're going to start contributing to that team the same way as all these other guys who fit in with that comfort level on their squads. So moving on to that
I appreciate that.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. What's up?
I was just gonna say, I was just thanking you for saying that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I said it to you in the rookie game. If you remember, I saw you out there and I said, I think I whispered to you, I said, shoot the puck, man. I saw that shot. I saw you shoot once and it was a good shot. And then I didn't see it again for a little bit. And I was telling you, I said, find that confidence and shoot. Find that like that lethal, that killer instinct to take a shot when it's there for you. Because once you get confident, you break that ice or whatever you got to do, it'll start falling together. And I think it will with playing against people you kind of have a feel for now, not only on your team, but who you're playing against. So 7:30, Manitoba Moose. Score was 15-9. You said you were on the call for this one, Austin. The three stars in this game were Brad, 6 goals, 2 assists, 2 blocks. Haran, 3 goals, 2 assists, 5 blocks. And Fos with 2 goals, 1 assist, 2 blocks. I see that Sean didn't play in this one as well, and he's a key cog for Manitoba. But what was everyone's impressions of this game? Austin, you were on the call. Tell me about what you thought a little bit.
The Hayneses just took control of the game immediately out of the gate. They were, father son just feeding each other. I think Brad had a hat trick in the first period, if I'm not mistaken, or within like the first half of the game, he already had 3 goals and he just kept on piling in more. Haran kind of flew under the radar, but he was contributing. I feel like he had some great setups. I'm trying to remember that game. But yeah, I just felt like mainly the Hayneses, and then you factor in Haran as well. They just took over the game, and at the end, Good Morning Vietnam kind of figured out what to do, but I feel like if they ran out of time, they didn't, and they just ran out of time. Just the best way I could describe it is that Good Morning Vietnam had time at the end because they really had a fire under them in the third.
Yeah, I did stats for this game as well. And I'd have to agree with pretty much spot on with what Austin said. Is right off the drop of the first puck, Manitoba just steamrolled. And they got out to a pretty strong lead. And then you got Kaz and that for Manitoba. So if you don't balance out the score or pile up early on Kaz, like it's hard to get back in the game. And you get Kaz at any kind of confidence where you get with Kaz, he had almost 2 periods full of confidence going into the third. Like, I mean, there's almost a set of comfort, which probably could lead to the high amount of goals that he allowed going into the end of the game. So, I mean, he might have just been comfortable being like, my team's playing great, I'm playing good. And then he might have just let in a few just unexpected goals. And I mean, you got Sweet Lasagna who just want to get back in the game. So they're going to be applying on that pressure. I think Lasagna had, how many goals did Lasagna have that game? I think he had 3, 2.
3.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, they definitely brought the pressure to try and get back in, but it's one of those too little, too late. You let a team like Manitoba gel and get ahead of you. They're going to play confident. And Kaz, as I said, you let him get comfortable, let him get cocky. Not cocky. He's not a cocky goalie ever, but he definitely just you get that level sense of comfort, which I think that might be the only. Not to say that Good Morning Vietnam didn't bring the heat and didn't get some goals, but I mean, I feel like there was a little bit of comfort that probably settled in with Kaz going into that last period.
There's always a little mini story within the data or within the stats. If you know where to look for it, you know how to read between the lines a little bit. And one of the things that stood out to me this game is that even with 9 goals against, Kazmark's save percentage wasn't as high as I thought it might be. So he finished with a 79% saves. And even with 9 goals against, you still sometimes see guys finish in like the low 80s. So to me, the story between the lines there is that if he had only 79% on 9 against, Good Morning was not shooting enough. It sounds like maybe they weren't shooting enough or getting pucks on net as cleanly as they could have or should have or needed to get that up, because then otherwise Kazmark's save percentage would have been a little higher, even like I said, even with 9 against. So I will also say Brandon, 69%. Nice.
I'm not gonna lie, everything you just said is just so spot on, because when I was totaling up the stats, I got to Kaz's percentage and I go, this can't be right. I was like re-looking at all the numbers and I'm like, there's no way he's under 80% with a W. Like, I'm just not seeing it. But again, I was like, there wasn't a lot of shots. And I did the same exact thing you just talked about when I did the math. And then when I did the lower half of the stat sheet and I did Brandon's math, I went and I wrote down, 69. Nice. I literally said, like, it's just like same page, Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't think that'll ever make it past the stat sheet and not get put in the post if it happens. I don't think it's the first time. I don't think it'll be the last. So that's a good one. All right, moving on to 8:30. Rob, your Limp Bizkits 9 to Phoenix Coyotes 1. Holy heater, Matt Makarchuk. Holy heater. Now, I won't say it just yet. I do have a little story about that, but the 3 stars for that game. Anders, you got one there. 3 goals, 1 assist, 4 blocks. Fos, 3 goals, 2 assists, 2 blocks. And then, of course, Matt Makarchuk, 98% saves with 2 shutout periods. What
should have been 3, man.
Animal. What an animal.
Man, me and him both were. I was on the floor for the only goal that went in, and of course it had to be Mr. Kyle Antilla. But it was just a flubber bounce too, which is what killed us. Like, looked like that puck didn't know where it wanted to go and it found its way in the net. But Matt he just played great. Like, he was he was where he needed to be that entire time. And like we talked about it last week, we felt like a big part of our loss was not exactly Matt's fault, but just bad bounces against Sarnia last week. A lot of rebounds dropped right at Matt's feet or kind of went near the posts. And it really blew up on us. And Matt's rebound control this week was either the pucks went in the corner or they bounced like all the way back to like mid court along the wall, setting us up for transition. It was crazy. I told him, I was like, you were positionally sound. You played fantastic, and he read the shots, and he was communicating well on the floor. If he couldn't see, he told us. If he liked our position, he told us. So he played lights out, and a huge part. I mean, granted, yes, we put up goals. We put up 9 on 3-time goalie of the year mark. But like 9 goals. That's all. I mean, realistically, look at all the other W's. 10 goals or more in this league is usually the signature. We didn't even break the 10 plane, but it was just, again, Matt was a huge part of it. And I feel like our defense too. Defensively, we all played really well too.
Yeah. Austin, did you stick around enough to see any part of that game? What are your thoughts on that 8:30 game?
I left after the first period. My dad wanted to get home, so I brought him home. But the main thing I just remember was Rob just lighting it up in that first period. And I'm like, oh yeah, he's cooking. He's on, he's got to get the hot stick going.
Yeah, I think you had 1 or even 2 of your goals in that first period, Rob, if I'm remembering back.
I believe I didn't score until the second.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was definitely worried that Shane was going to credit Foes for the first goal of the game. Foes had one that trickled right through Mark, and it was like on the goal line. And I tried to like poke it in, but it was in the net before I even touched it. So it was definitely a Foes goal in the first. But there was just something about that game. The puck on the stick felt good. I felt like I was dialed in. Felt like I was kind of like wired. Just like I just had one focus and that was it. And not on top of that, like Foes and I were just clicking. I don't know. There was just something that happened. I mean, me and Foes usually have clicked before with D&D. We clicked. And then, I mean, we just previously in this season, we've just kind of been on the same page. And if we're on the same page, I feel like we do really well on the floor. So it's just, I mean, there was a play out there that sits out with me really well where I knew he trusted me and I could trust him, where I saw Haran on the post, right behind Mark, wide open, and Foes is getting double teamed. He's looking at me, and Foes wanted the puck to go to me. And I just said post. I said post. He didn't even look. He just spun the puck right between 2 people's legs to Haran on the back door. I mean, unfortunately, Haran flubbed the pass, but it was just like, it was like moments like that where me and Foes just knew where to be. And I mean, my second goal, pats on my I give it all to Foes. It was just a beautiful play where I shook Thiesing at the point and I ran to the net, and Foes just looked like he was going to drive to that, and just beautiful slide backhand pass to my stick, and I just tapped it in. It was a beauty, and just great playing out there. And we just clicked. And again, that's what I'm saying. Every week we've been coming up with a game plan of how we want to attack, what teams are we playing against, and how can we play against them. And this week the plan of attack was executed well. Unfortunately, Bob wasn't feeling well, so we didn't have the Bob out there, and George was out on a work situation. So we were 2 people short, and luckily Haran stepped in and subbed for us. So we were able to make do with what we had.
Yeah. So the funny story with Matt is I think it was right at the start of the second period or right at the end of the first, one or the other, where there was a shot from like almost no angle and it went right up against the post.
Oh, it was in the beginning of the second when we were on stage side.
So he put the clip in the clip showcase. And so I immediately said on the call, I wish everyone could have seen the look he shot me, because he didn't know where it went. And I think he was really worried, knowing that he was on a heater, that it snuck in somehow. And he was like down looking at the puck, and the look that he gave me, I cannot even, it's going to live rent free in my head forever because it was so funny.
Deer in headlights?
Yeah, it was like, and he just froze, and he just made unblinking eye contact with me. And I was just like, And then he picked his foot up and it was there, and it was just like I said, I wish everyone could have seen the look on his face because it was great. But he definitely knew for a moment the implication of what would have happened if that went in, because I knew he was thinking about how he was at least going to get a shutout period, or was on a shutout period and trying to get another one. So yeah, he was a heater for that one. And moving on to 9:30, and before we talk about the 9:32, another little side story is that I texted Matt to tell him how awesome his game was. And he casually goes, "Well, how did your game go?" And I said, "Well, I saw what you did out there and I felt like I needed to match it." So so the 9:30 game, Master Vader's 10, Sarnia Sting 1. The goals, or the three stars of the game: Leduc, 4 goals, 2 assists, 2 blocks; Chris, 3 goals, 1 assist, 4 blocks; and I got one with a 98% and 2 shutout periods. So, like I said, I told Matt, I see you, and I want to compliment you by replicating you in that one. So,
I remember I was supposed to call that game, but I was exhausted. I had a very long week last week. And I asked Brian, because he was going to do color with me. I was like, "Do you mind doing the game for him? I'm going to head home." And I was talking with Matt later that night, and I'm like, "I'm curious how that game ended, because when I left that game, it was 2-1 at the end of the first." And I was like, "I'm excited to see how that game plays out, because you got Sweet subbing for Dan, Mark instead of Conco." I'm like, it might be a close game. Like, I'm curious how it plays out, because it was 2-1 when I left. And Matt goes, "Yeah, it ended 10-1." I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Freaking 2.0 and shut out for the rest of the game, just like no goals. And oh my God. So you're having a great year in general. I mean, I was just taking a look at the stats in general for the season, and you're doing exactly what I've talked about on previous podcasts, which scares me. Is you've got a fantastic team in front of you, obviously reflective on a 7-0 streak right now with almost 100 goals for. Like, your team's playing fantastic. And I've said it on multiple podcasts. If 2.0 plays the way 2.0 plays, because I've seen you play goalie before, I've played with you before, you're a really good goalie. And if you can start rolling the way you've been playing, it's just going to be even harder to beat you guys, because not only, again, the team's fantastic alone. That team could have Tim in net and be fantastic. But they've got you in net, who's starting to get back into stride. And it's like, shit, what do we do now? So, and I feel like 2 shutout periods in one game is just a reflection of what the season's been and what's to come. So it's terrifying. So RFHL, watch out, because 2.0 and Master Vaders are on a heater.
yeah, I appreciate that. I'll be honest, the one goal against was a lot like the one. Like I said, I tried to tell Matt I was going to copy him, and I copied him right down to the one and only goal that got scored against, because it was a puck that kind of got kicked around and bounced in front, and I knew in my head I saw that John was going to get a break away and get to it first, and I came out like I had been a lot that game to poke. My teammates were even saying like, "Geez, what'd you do with your goalie stick this game? Like, it's on, like, my stick alone was like on fire. There was one save, it hit me in the chest, bounced up, and I like popped it away with my stick. And I was poking a lot of stuff. And I went out to get that poke check on John. And right as I put my stick out, the puck took one more bounce,
Mm.
and he got the stick around my stick and got a piece of it. And I moved my arm back, and I still felt it hit like the top of my elbow, but I knew right away it wasn't enough. And I was so bummed because I'm sure like how Matt felt, it was right towards the end of the first period for me. I don't think Matt got scored on until the second. I can't remember when you guys got scored
Yeah,
on.
middle of the second. It was actually, I think it was like a minute 18. And I know for a fact. I remember looking at the clock and there was a minute 18, and I was like, no, we
Yeah.
were almost 2 periods away.
So as soon as it happened, it was almost like a little bit of a relief, because I think for me it was about 2 minutes, 3 minutes left in the first. Um, and so I was kind of like, okay, yeah, that's fine. But the same way that, you described how Matt was playing or the same way that you described like you were playing in your game, when you get like kind of in that like flow state almost, like you just get dialed in and locked in, like it just feels like you can't do anything wrong. Like you're just feeling great. You're doing all the right stuff. And admittedly, um, I know that the team in front of me is making my stats look better than they actually should be, but I also know that it's it's teams like this one or teams like I've had in the past when I'm in net. The season that I won goalie of the year, which was my second season in the RFHL with Five Guys, Slappers, and Fries was the team name. We did end up winning the championship, and same thing that season they just made it feel easy. Like they just like took the pressure off. There was like no weight on my shoulders that like when you're a goalie, you kind of feel like, okay, it comes down to me in the end or at the, when something goes wrong, it's your fault. You were the one who had to be there and make that stand. So it can kind of get to you. But Austin, I think you mentioned to me once before that you've played goalie before. Is that correct?
Yes, in that street hockey league that I mentioned in fifth grade.
So it's been
We
a
played
while.
from fifth grade to ninth grade, and then also intramural floor hockey at Cortland. So that would have been fall of 23 would be the last time I've played an actual game in that.
Okay, so you probably know a little bit like what I'm talking about when you kind of feel like the weight is on your shoulders, but then when your team's doing well, that weight comes off. So it's a little easier to kind of get into a rhythm, right?
Yeah, and I also think it's also can be a double-edged sword sometimes, at least in my opinion. Sometimes I would, or at least in my case, sometimes I'd get overconfident and play a little bit more aggressive than I should be, and then it's like Chernobyl. It's just a meltdown, and then next thing you know, you're down. Oh, we were up, like 4 goals. Why are we down? Is it 6-4 now? Like, what happened? And
Yeah.
so sometimes I view stuff like that. Like if you're playing amazing, I'm like, I always think in the back of my head, okay, is that meltdown going to happen where they get overconfident, over aggressive, and get burnt by it?
Yeah. Well, maybe some season you'll have to sign up and punch your ticket to be a card carrying goalie union member and play a season in that. Maybe it's something you'll have to toy around with at some point.
Yeah, a few of my former league members have been following my games. They're like, so when are you going to play net? Or some of them were like, did you retire from playing goalie? And I'm like, eh.
Not yet. You're
No,
never
not yet.
fully out. Look at me. I thought I was out of the net finally for good, and here I am back in net. And as much as Rob wants to, you know, fluff me up a little bit and tell me I'm doing great, my hips every night the drive home after the game is like the most torturous. I can't like sit like that in the car for that long, and my hips just lock. I get home and I'm like hobbling into the garage trying to unload my equipment. I'm an old man now.
I do not miss
Yeah,
I do
it was
not
always
miss that.
it was always my right knee. I remember because for some reason, especially in college at Cortland, uh, it's a hill. The campus is a hill, and at the bottom of the hill was where we would play. So I had to carry my gear up the hill, and thank God I had a bag with wheels on it. Shout out to my dad. And some of my teammates didn't think to give me a ride up the hill. So I would have to drag my gear up the hill, like full goalie gear up the hill. And I'm like dead halfway through, ready to collapse. And I'm like, because my knee's giving out, because I dropped down so many times during the game. And then finally, one of my captains, I think was no, it would be what was my 4th year of my 5 years, pulled over, saw me, and gave me a ride up the hill. And then for the rest of the season, gave me rides up the hill so I didn't have to go through that torturous experience of climbing up the hill at Cortland.
Well, like I said, maybe we'll have to get you in net for a season and see, or even, one of the best ways you can test it out and see if you want to give it a go is you're always welcome to if your team gets knocked out of the playoffs, on the night of the finals, we have a game called the Scrub Cup, which is just kind of pickup hockey. But we've had some people use that game to test out if they want to try goalie for a future season or not. So that's always an option too. Something to give thought to. That or the Winter Classic, which is kind of the mini tournament that happens in between fall and spring seasons. So hey, one last thing I want to mention though about that 9:30 game. Despite what the score says, holy cow, that Sarnia team can really rip it. And I think if I was looking at I tried to look at some of the team stats, and if I'm remembering correctly, I think they shoot more than any other team in the league. I think they might be leading the league in shots in their games. Um, I can't remember exactly where it was I saw it. I'm trying to find it again, but boy, even if they don't, they feel like it because and called a couple of their games and they fire at will, but they were shooting a lot. And I told Conco after the game because he asked me how it went. I said, I'm more tired than I have been all season in any game. And maybe part of that was that it was the 9:30 game, but I doubt it because like I said, I was more tired than I have been after any game this season, and I think it's because they just shoot so much.
Well, so the team that shoots second most would be my team, Limp Biscuits, with 448 shots, but Sarnia Sting has 457 shots. Just, I mean, what I think it was the game against Phoenix Coyotes like a couple weeks ago. They had like 90 something shots.
Mhm.
It was nuts.
Yeah, they were ripping, taking a ton of shots.
I mean, I tip my hat to them, and I have no complaints about our loss that we had to them because it's exactly why they're overbearing. They shoot, and they pressure it, and they stay on you. So they're definitely a team to keep an eye out for come playoffs because I mean, sure they're in what seventh place or sixth place right now in the standings, but they're a team to keep an eye on in the playoffs. I definitely foresee them not being knocked out in the first round.
Yeah, and there is some playoff seeding that can be determined after this week, and we'll talk about that when we do some previews in a little bit. But first, kind of like a little mid podcast conversation. Some of the thoughts that I wanted to put out there. Most importantly, I've been asked by Commissioner Sweetmeat to mention to everybody that, hey, guess what time of year it is? It's time for the nominations, the yearly awards or the season awards. We say year, but it's season. The season awards and the nominations for those awards are going to be starting after the games this coming week. So after week 8 ends, nominations will open up. And one of the things that's been mentioned or toyed around with a little bit is that nominations might go through. I think Sweet is going to open a new channel on the Discord. So you'll see a nominations channel where you can put in a nomination for each of the awards. Usually he'll put a little prompt in there. And then what most guys do, Austin, this is for you or any of the other rookies, what most people do is they might tag or put in one or two, maybe even three people for each award that they think are worth nominating for that award. Some people put just one, but you can put your nominations in there. You can nominate multiple people for the same awards. But those nominations will be opening up soon. They'll be on the Discord channel for nominations. But I do believe traditionally most people have commented on a Facebook post for that. I don't know if that's going to happen again, but it could be a space where some people might see that nomination announcement happening. So keep an eye out for that. Again, after week 8, nominations for the awards will begin. And speaking of awards, so I talked to you guys a little bit ahead of time what some of those awards are. So the ones that are given out every season are League MVP, Goalie of the Year, Defenseman of the Year, Rookie of the Year, and then we have the Outplay Draft Spot, which is the person who got drafted in a certain spot but is playing way above the level that you would expect for being drafted in that place. the most improved player. So someone who has really shown just kind of a major uptick. Maybe they're having a career season. Um, and then last but not least, we have some of the non-voting awards. We have Captain of the Year, which the COJ votes on. We have the Playoff MVP, which COJ votes on. The scoring title, which is self-explanatory. And the Swiss Army Award. I can't remember if that one's one everybody votes on or if that's a COJ award. And then last but not least, block shots, which again, self-explanatory. But in the history of the RFHL, we've had some interesting awards. We've had some awards in the past that are no longer with us, so to speak. And I know that those trophies are still around. Every once in a while, I see that Get Nutty Bird popping around when Sweet unpacks his crate of trophies during playoffs. But we've had some awards in the past. And first, I'm going to start off with Rob and ask you, are there any awards that are not a part of the league or not a part of each season anymore that you remember or that you think would be maybe worth bringing back or an award worth having around again?
I took a look at the awards because as I mentioned earlier, I don't think there's been an award that's been put to rest since I joined the league. But I was taking a look at the awards that did exist, and the Sub of the Year award kind of stood out to me. And it looks like there's only been one winner, and that was Conco. And I don't know if that just like was a 1 year we didn't like it, we got rid of it kind of thing, or if there's just a funny story behind it. But it just kind of stood out to me because I was just thinking to myself the other day of if we like should try and keep track of stats for the people who sub. I think I've seen Mark
Okay.
sub twice this year, 3 times this year.
Mark has been the goalie sub of the year for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, I don't know. It's more or less, I feel like Sub of the Year could be a great award as far as kind of like a thank you for being that person that steps up when needed, or maybe you were just a pivotal point to helping teams win or whatever else, depending on what your stats were on those subs. I mean, also, I could understand it being kind of a pointless award if we've only had like 4 or 5 subs throughout the whole year and there was only one person that did it. But yeah, I don't know. I'd be kind of interested in seeing that be an award that could be revived and brought back. It's just interesting to see, depending on, again, it could be something that falls out if we don't have a lot of subs that season, but could also be interesting, especially in a year where you have multiple subs. Does that person help out a lot? And again, is more of a, just like the Swiss Army is. Swiss Army is a great award for people who just help out and are a huge pivotal part of the league. Sub of the Year, thanks for being that guy who just always makes himself available when needed.
Yeah. No, I actually, my ears perked up when you mentioned the stats because we do keep stats for when people sub and then mark them as a sub on the post that goes out the next morning. So I don't think it would be terribly difficult to go back and look and see maybe Sub of the Year is simply an individual instance of somebody subbing where they clearly made an impact on that game. Because a lot of times you'll see people sub and maybe they still, maybe like a goalie subs, but they lose, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
a floor player subs, but they don't really do, much. Or maybe they have like their normal game. But every once in a while you'll see a sub, even if it's only like the third or fourth instance of the season where somebody had to sub on the floor who just goes bonkers in a game. I actually remember a game a couple seasons ago where somebody subbed, and I think they had like 7 goals in the game, and just like lit it up. And they were not like a sub where like they picked them because it was like cherry picking a good player. It just that person had a fantastic game. So maybe I think you're onto something. That might be something worth thinking about. So Austin, being a rookie, some of these older awards that don't get handed out anymore, they wouldn't make much sense to you. But I got a question for you, and maybe you can throw out a cool idea. What would be a new award that you think the RFHL could or should use?
One I was thinking of was like maybe like a locker room leader. Obviously the captain being goalies this year. For the bench, the captain's not going to be there talking to us. So for us, it's Jake Shelton. Jake Shelton is kind of in control of the conversation. Hey, here's what we got to do, and then we all pitch in, like create a game plan right before the next period starts. And I like that. Like a locker room leader, or is just like an idea I had, or like a glue guy. This is someone who kind of keeps the team together. But I think that kind of falls under the heart award.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna jump in on that. Is I honestly I back that idea. I've been on a few teams now where sometimes the captain's just not as vocal. Or I mean, you have a team like my team, 2.0, and I were on a team a few seasons ago, and I feel like 2.0 is a great leader, and obviously right now as he is as a captain, but I feel like where I didn't provide sometimes as a captain, 2.0 also did. He would be that hype guy that season. You know what I mean? That guy that provided all great ideas as well as the captain. So I think that's an awesome idea. There's always somebody I think that's on the team because again, sometimes captains just aren't as vocal. The captain likes being that role, or they volunteer to do it because the league needs a captain. But maybe the captain's not as vocal in the chat or the team as somebody else is on the team who just kind of riles everybody up.
Yeah, it's funny because while you were describing that award, Austin, I was thinking that it sounds similar to, or it could be a new way to adapt that heart and soul award that used to exist. But yeah, no, it's a good idea because you see a lot of guys who, like Rob mentioned, there's teams where there's a guy on the team who's maybe not the captain, but they're lifting you up or they're doing something, or maybe they just know when to say something. Like, some people are really good at saying, like, I know I'm not the captain. Let me, sit back. But in this moment, is this something that the captain could use from me that the rest of the team can benefit from? So that's a good idea. I like that idea for that award. Um, there you go, sweet. There's your cherry picked something helpful of the week question. But hey, chat, anybody watching this video, what would you say is an old award that you want to have brought back? Or do you have any ideas for some new awards that could be handed out? Feel free to put that as a comment on the video. So last but not least, before we get into these week 8 previews. The only other thing I want to ask you guys is, like I said, we're at the point in the season where we're now playing second teams again. And generally speaking, Rob, maybe you can answer this a little bit better than Austin since he's a rookie. But what advice would you give the rookies, or what things do you think about generally before you start playing these teams again? What are some of the things that like go through your mind? And I know you said you game plan pretty well, but like what are some of the things you think about when you know you're about to go up against guys the second time around, and maybe you're kind of thinking about like what should we expect out of this game?
Well, RFHL has changed over the years, and going into the second half of the season, there's something that you can do. You can go back and watch the tape. So there's that. But besides that, I mean, the big thing is finding a way to stick to your game. If you lost last game, think about why you lost that game. What was going on? Were you short a guy? Were they short a guy? Were you guys too aggressive? Were they too aggressive? What was the issues that led to that loss? And if you won, think about what may have changed since then. Because if you dominated, especially this week going in right now, this is the team you're playing against this week in week 8 is the team you played in week 1. Some people weren't gelling yet. Did you dominate a team in week 1 and now they're 7-1? You know what I mean? Like, or 6-1. So maybe they figured it out after week 1. What has that team been doing since then? Have you try and think about what that team's been doing since the first week, what they've done to improve, or are they still flatlining? And then just kind of find ways to attack that, and figure out your game plan from there.
Yeah, that's good advice. I know I mentioned earlier, Austin, that you get the chance now to feel maybe a little bit more confidence going into your game because you're going to know some of the players you're going up against instead of always going in a little bit blind. is there anything you're looking forward to about these next three games? I think I kind of asked something similar before, but I'm just curious, like do you feel like you're looking forward to these rematch weeks, so to speak?
Yeah, especially this Good Morning Vietnam game, because the way I thought that game went was that no one knew, there was no chemistry the first two periods. And then the last period, we started getting going. We finally kind of figured out how everyone played. There's that adjustment period, especially with having basically two rookies with me and Frankie out on the floor. Now we know how everyone plays. So now we know how each other plays. How does that change the game plan that we originally had of just kind of figuring things out? And now we're actually going to go play competitive, even more competitive, because we know what everyone does and execute that role.
Yeah, that's good thinking. I actually, it's funny you say that because before we got to these games, and that was one of the things I was going to mention about your game, was that I noticed in, when we preview your 9:30 game this coming week, that you guys did seem to kind of start to click towards the end, and it was almost like just a little too late, but you all felt it. Like you all were like, "Ah, man, if only we would have found this just a little sooner, this might have changed things." So, that's certainly a good insight for when you get out there again, and now you know how your own teammates play. So hey, let's get right into it. Week 8, we've got at 6:30 Manitoba Moose versus Phoenix Coyotes. At 7:30, we've got Rob the Mayor's Limp Biscuits versus my Masturbators. At 8:30, we've got Sarnia Sting against Tribe Called Quest. And at 9:30, Good Morning Vietnam against Austin's Iron Thrones. So that 6:30 matchup, Manitoba Moose, Phoenix Coyotes. Rob, what do you think about it?
So I called this game week 1, and I felt like the Phoenix Coyotes just could not get any groundwork, and Manitoba just did what Manitoba does. The Haynes kind of controlled the game, and Kaz as well played great. Phoenix, however, I feel like they kind of rocked and rolled for 3 weeks, and then the last few weeks they're starting to kind of get their groove minus last week. And I mean, I wouldn't even count last week against them. That's their second week in a row without Paul. Kind of leaves a team trying to figure out how can we manage as a low, like not a full 6-man crew, trying to figure everything out. Hopefully they're a full 6-man crew this week. If they're a 6-man crew who I feel like was playing well for a few weeks there, they could put up a good battle against Manitoba. But again, if Manitoba does what they've been doing the last few weeks, where they start to kind of roll quick and early, it makes it tough. It makes it really tough to control that game. You've got with Manitoba, you got to get ahead or balance them out for most of the game. Otherwise, if Manitoba gets ahead of you, it's kind of tough to get back into it. So ultimately, if I'm dropping any kind of predictions on this, unfortunately, I feel like I see Manitoba still taking the W. I know Phoenix probably wants to even in the score and get back at them, but I see Manitoba kind of getting ahead of the game and taking the W here. I'm not going to throw a score on it. I can't tell. Could be high, could be low, but I see Manitoba taking the W.
Yeah. Austin, what do you think about this matchup?
I'm going to have to go with Manitoba as well. Just the way they played when I was calling their game last night, like Rob said, if they get ahead, I think that's the key for Manitoba. If they get ahead quickly, I remember playing, with our Iron Thrones. Your team is already up on you very early on, and you're already in like that fight or flight response, and maybe that creates more mistakes, or it could like demoralize you, or it lights a fire under you. So I could see it. So I agree with Rob. It could go either way, but I think if Manitoba gets ahead, they have the game. But I'm not going to give any score predictions because that's not something I'm good at. So
Yeah, I agree that this is, I think, a closer matchup on paper than it might look, at least in terms of like some of the goal scoring ability and the way that each of these two teams play, they're different from one another. Obviously, Manitoba Moose, they play much more like hockey IQ kind of clinical game. And the Phoenix Coyotes are a bit more of a kind of run and gun. Uh, Sometimes they'll play crash the net style, and really, I think for them it comes down to, are they going to have Paul Paradine back this week? And if they do, are they going to go back to the ways that were helping them string together a few wins? They've kind of had a weird season where they started, I think, what, 0-3, and then they won 3 or 4, and then now they've lost again. Actually, no, it was 0-3, then up to like 3-3, and then lost. So are which version of them are you going to get this week? I think is what it kind of comes down to. And unfortunately for Manitoba Moose, I'm going to pick the Coyotes in this one because I think and sorry, maybe Matt owes Kaz an apology, but I think the Coyotes, if that game where they only had one goal doesn't light a fire under their butts, I don't know what will, because on the bench they were not only like very, like you could see the weight of like, oh my God, we just can't score hanging on their shoulders, but they were still like frustrated in the sense that they were like, they still had a fire there. Like they weren't just like, okay, this week's a wash. They were still fighting to try to figure something out. And so I think when you couple that with, the fact that they're going to be frustrated with last week, and now they've got to come back and they've got a chance to win against an opponent that they lost to in week one. I think I'm going to go with the Coyotes in this one, just because I got a feeling they're going to come out a little bit piss and vinegar in this game. So who knows? I usually don't shy away from a score prediction, but I'm having a hard time thinking of one in this one. Uh, if I'm going to give it a score prediction, I'm going to go 8-5 in favor of Coyotes. I think Mark finds a groove too, which is tough to do against Brad and Bob and Sean and anybody else on that. Haran, right? I think Haran's normally on Manitoba too. So I mean, hey, that's 5 is Mark's going to be on a heater if he can keep him to 5. So, but yeah, I think Phoenix might take this one.
Yeah, I mean, trying to keep Manitoba Moose under 5 is interesting. I mean, I don't think they haven't been under 7 all season. So
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's a bold prediction, but like I said, I don't shy away from score predictions. I try to throw one out there, so we'll see. I don't know. Like I said, when Mark's on and when he's
Mark's
like
on.
determined, he can 5 or less anybody out there. So who knows? All right, 7:30, Limp Bizkits, Masturbators. Austin, what do you think? Why don't you take the lead on this one?
I was gonna say, should we let Austin?
We on the spot now.
I'm gonna look everywhere except for at Rob. Austin, what do you think?
Yeah. I don't know who can stop your team. At this point, I'm like, who can stop the Masturbators? Or who even has the chance to stop the Masturbators? At this point, like, I don't want to say, like, oh, the chemistry's already is all there now. It was always there. And now you guys are undefeated to the point, basically dominating every game. And now, so you guys are dominating every game, but also I could also see if it would go Limp Bizkit's way is just the way of and try and take, they're the rebels. They're going to take down, the Empire Masturbators. But I don't think you can stop Duck and Galante, Foes. I just don't see a way of stopping them at this point. I feel like the ball, it's an avalanche at this point. The ball was rolling to begin with, and now this snowball has turned into an avalanche.
I'll let you have the last word on this one, Mayor, if you'd like. Do you want me to go?
Go for it.
Okay. It's up to you. I'm
Go
doing
for it.
Okay, so I have an interesting statistic for you. And this is not me trying to like blow smoke up my own team's butts here, but you know me and being kind of like really interested in the stats and in between the lines and like the unique little things that happen in a season that aren't on the stat sheet but are still interesting facts. And something was bothering me for a little bit. Not bothering, but like it was like bouncing around in my head and I couldn't shake it. And I think this is kind of a goalie trait. Goalies have a unique ability to kind of remember the flow of games in like all of their games. And we have like this like ability to kind of remember the tough goals that got scored against us or the moments where maybe you felt the game was going one way or the other. It sticks with you. So I say all of that because something was eating at me enough that I went back to watch all of the game film for the start of all of our games for the season so far. And here is a very interesting fact that I discovered. The Master Vaders have only trailed in a game once all season, and it was the very first goal in the very first game against the Limp Biscuits. You guys scored first, and then I believe we scored the next two, and we have not trailed since. And I'm not trying to like gas up my team, but it was really standing out. Like his face, it was really standing out in my head, and I kept thinking to myself, like I said it earlier, these guys make playing goalie really easy. It's been nice having to play goalie and not worry about the fact that I haven't played goalie in a couple years. So that's been helpful. But yeah, I can't put it any other way, other than I think maybe it wasn't even you who scored that first goal.
I was gonna say too. Did you see something that happened in that first goal in that first game?
I think it was your first. I think it was you.
I literally ran to the puck, rolled the shit out of my ankle, and I felt it pop and crack, and I go fuck. And Leduc, as he's running up to me, goes, "Yo, you all right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good." I grabbed the puck, whipped it at you. I was like, I just got to put it on net. And I whipped it up top corner on the left on your blocker side. And I said, all right, I'm going to get off the floor now. And
Yep.
I went for a change.
And what's even crazier, I think it was the first shot on net.
Yeah, I think so.
I think the first, and the reason I think that is because again, goals stand out to a goalie. And I remember thinking, Jesus, you couldn't even make the first save of the season. You couldn't even stop the first puck you saw that actually counts. Like, come on, dude. Like I was like hammering myself for that. But yeah, you scored first in that game on the first shot on net, and my team has not trailed since.
That's why I look forward to playing a full game.
I can't wait. I mean, I'm not going to pick against my own team, but I
Neither am I.
definitely expect this to be a very close, very tough game. I hope my guys are ready to be challenged like they haven't been challenged all season, because I know you guys are hungry. Yeah.
If you're still watching this podcast, if you've made it this far into the podcast, I want to make sure that everyone who watches this podcast to tell all their friends that watch the podcast or know about the RFHL that exists to either go to YouTube or come to the school and watch this 7:30 game of the week. In my opinion, you've got a team who in red has focused each week on the team that is ahead of them, but there's always a secondary story behind the team that's ahead of them. And that's looking forward to week 8 of this season. So I advise to come watch this game. If you play at 6:30, tell your significant other you're not going to be home until 8:30. If you play at 8:30, I advise you come an hour early. If you play at 9:30, skip dinner and come 2 hours early. I advise watching this game. As 2.0 said, I'm not going to pick against my own team. Limp Bizkit is going to win this game somehow, some way. It's not going to be an easy game by any means. This isn't going to be a game. I don't think that this is going to be an 11-5 game like last time. I think this is going to be at most a 2 to 3 goal spread. Could be high scoring, could be low scoring. I think you got two goalies coming off of a 98% save percentage last week. Staying dialed in. We could see two shutout periods in the first period. Neither goalie pops. I don't know. Not putting pressure on Matt, not putting pressure on you. But I think it's going to be a great game. Game of the week, in my opinion. And I mean, obviously I know there's a personal bias going on here, but I'm also looking at standings. I'm looking at stats, and I'm looking at how the rest of the season has played in the last 7 weeks. To be honest, I think this is the matchup to watch out for.
The only other thing I'm going to say is that I oftentimes look at the goalies I go up against and kind of view them the same way most people view like pitching duels in baseball. Um, so I always love being able to duel against Brett. I always love being able to go up against Conco. Um, I have really enjoyed watching Matt join the league and play goalie and then convince himself he's not good at it, despite the fact that he always is near the upper half, if not the top two or three. So I'm looking forward to this duel. It'll only be the second time we match up against each other in net, but it really has that kind of like Shohei Ohtani, Max Scherzer kind of feel, like the World Series just did, right? Like it kind of feels like you've got two goalies coming off of games where you expect that out of your ace, and hopefully they can do it again for you, kind of thing. So I'm looking forward to it, and hopefully getting a few deer in the headlight looks like across the court during the game. So who knows? But yeah, it's gonna be a good one. Show up, watch it. If you can't, watch it on online. I don't know. Um, but hey, 8:30, we've got Sarnia Sting and a Tribe Called Quest. Talk about a goalie duel. I was just talking about both these guys, Conco, Brett. Hopefully Conco's back. I know last week he sat out because he's very prone to migraines. And I know that he had a very important day at school the next day, so he really didn't want to risk having to fight through that, and I felt bad for him because I really love playing against him. But here's another top tier goalie duel. Brett, multiple time goalie of the year winner, Conco, multiple time goalie of the year winner. Both goalies have won championships. It's going to be I think, a really great game. And like I said, Sarnia shoots a ton, and Tribe plays such a kind of a grindy power forward game that just wears down every team. This is going to be a good one. Rob, what do you think about this one?
I think this game goes back to when you asked me what would be my advice going into this week. This is one of those games of what has Sarnia done since week one? I feel like a Tribe Called Quest kind of stomped that game. I remember showing up right after the first period started, and it seemed like Tribe like dominated the whole time. Like Sarnia felt like they were playing from behind. Kenton played goalie for the first two periods, and then Conco jumped in the third. And it just felt like Sarnia couldn't click. I mean, the amount of veterancy in the RFHL on that team is crazy high, but it seemed like they were all just trying to find out what's going to work best. We don't know who our goalie is right now because we're switching between Conco and Kenton. There was just a lot of uncertainty, and Tribe dominated. But then look at the next 6 weeks after that. Tribes kind of struggled up and down. They've kind of had like their mountains that they've gone through. Sarnia went on a little streak. They won the next 2 games after losing week one. Tribe lost 2 games after losing week one or winning week one. So each team's kind of one loss, and they've kind of found themselves. Tribe is now kind of starting to swing heavy with their physicality, their gameplay, their goal scores. I mean, Furlano went 2 games, I think, with no goals, which was kind of crazy. But then Furlano's been back in Furlano mode, and you can't stop him, you know. But then, I mean, if Sarnia's got Dan next week, and this team's playing the way they've been playing. I mean, you felt how they felt without Dan.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I think this we lost Austin there. I think this game's gonna be pretty intense, to be honest. I think it's gonna be fast paced, a lot of shooting, and a lot of goal scoring, if I'm gonna be honest. I have faith in Brett being an amazing goalie, and same with Conco, but I feel like this is gonna be like a 13-11 game or something like that. I think it's gonna be pretty high scoring.
Okay. Yeah. It's funny. I was going to comment after you were done. I was going to say I'm going to dish it over to Austin, but he hasn't stopped smiling for like 10. He was there like this, like.
I know he was having some bandwidth issues there for a little bit. Oh, he's connecting back. Here we go.
Good. I told him to leave and come back so that he can reconnect to the chat. I'm glad he's coming back in, but at least he froze while smiling for a little bit. Hey, you're back, Austin. How's it going?
Hi. I'm all right. I could see two, and I could hear what you guys were saying. I could see two moving, but I could not see Rob. It was very weird.
Interesting. Well, we were just talking about, if you could hear us, then you heard us talking about your cat poster back there, and we were wondering if you had cats. Do you have cats?
I have two. I did have three, but before I moved here, she passed. But I have two cats right now.
Oh, sorry to hear that. Well,
she was 14, so.
Oh, so no 15-year-olds on your lap.
No, my cat. I have a cat that has separation anxiety from me. From college. I think he's conked down on my bed right now.
I just derailed everything. Rob is off camera. Okay, so well, hey, comment in the chat if you know about the 15-year-old. And yeah.
I'm sorry, we gotta clarify. You can't just leave it at if you know, you know. We're putting way too much shit at risk. So Austin, a little flashback story. We had a draft show in the last season, and we had this guy Tim who used to be a wonderful goalie in the RFHL, and he also just started off at one point talking about his cats. And my cat later on in the show just happened to show up in the background, and he made a comment about my cat, and then also followed that up with stating that he had like a 15-year-old on his lap, and the whole room went quiet. We all just were like, and I immediately jumped in and I had to clean it up, and I was like, "Oh yeah, you're talking about your cat, right?" It's
yeah.
I had to make sure we clean that up. We almost just had a really bad lawsuit on our hands. So
yeah.
So Austin, your thoughts and feelings on this Sarnia Sting Tribe Called Quest game this week?
Well, recency bias would be, if I went with recency bias, I would go with a Tribe Called Quest, just playing them. But I'm trying to look back at our game against our game against Sarnia. Yeah, they beat us 9-4. And the main thing I remember that game was that Dan just took over the game. And with
I hope that shows up on the recording.
I hope so. The cat's coming up from the side.
Because otherwise we're just gonna look ridiculous laughing.
Oh yeah.
It should be there.
Yeah, so I just remember in our game against Sarnia, Dan just took over the game. And, and then if we did stop Dan, someone else was already there, ready to pounce. And that kind of brings me to a Tribe Called Quest, where they play, that grindy, physical power forward game, as you said, too, that it really... I'm on the fence about it in a way of it comes down to if Tribe can shut down Sarnia with their physicality, wear them down, then they take the game. But if Sarnia can kind of get it out and have someone right there, then they win. But I know I said recency bias, but I feel like I have to give it to Tribe because I feel like they're just going to continue to wear everyone down.
Yeah, I think that's a good. Um, I think that's a good kind of analysis. Um, I can't remember if I made a prediction or not for this one, but if I had to guess, I know Rob, you said it's might be a little higher scoring. Um, I could see this one being kind of the team that wins is the one that scores double digits, and it'll be a close game. So I could see this being like a 10-9 game, maybe like a 11-8, somewhere like in that range. And it's hard to pick one way or the other, but I'm gonna go with a tribe in this one, a tribe called Quest. Um, Obviously, I don't know if Dan will be back or not for them for Sarnia, but I was tempted to pick them because of the same reason I picked the Coyotes, where coming off of a game where you're frustrated with not scoring more than one goal is it never bodes well for your next opponent. We were joking at the beginning of the season about how teams uh, we beat you guys, Rob, and then I think the next week you came out and I think you put in 14 goals on Brett the second week after playing us, and our game was 11-5, and five is like it's not like you had one, but you guys definitely carried over that anger, and then I apologized to Brett for it because he took the brunt of it. So, I could see Sarnia winning this one too, but I think I'm going to go with Tribe, and I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be 1 or 2 goal difference at most. So. Hey, and then last but not least, RFHL After Dark. Austin, your Iron Thrones up against Good Morning Vietnam. You want to preview this one first? Go ahead.
I kind of already did earlier on where we weren't Iron Thrones weren't clicking. We didn't really know how each other played. We were kind of getting comfortable with how everyone played, and we kind of figured that out in the third period. But then again, by the time we were so far down, we just ran out of time to come back, and obviously you got Sweet, you got Lasagna, who was like in my mind like my star player, one of my star players when I was calling the game between Good Morning Vietnam and Manitoba. They're very well rounded, and obviously I'm not going to pick against my own team because I feel like that's just suicide, especially as a rookie.
Yeah, don't do it.
But yeah, obviously I'm going to go with Iron Thrones. I feel like we'll go back, watch the tape. Now we have the chemistry. Now we can just work on what didn't work in our game. Now let's go and execute those things that we couldn't those first 2 periods against Good Morning Vietnam in week 1.
Rob, what do you think about that one, that matchup?
I think this is your guys' opportunity, Iron Thrones, to kind of get your revenge, get your get back a little bit. I agree with what you said. I remember watching your guys' first game, and the bull in a china shop is a pretty good analogy. But I felt like that was your whole team in week 1. There was just a lot of running around. You got fast players on their team. But it just seemed like there wasn't any real gelling or clicking between anybody on the team. And then you played against a team who also has a fast-paced team in Good Morning Vietnam. And no knock on Brandon, but Brandon played lights out week 1. Granted, there was a lot of just firing from everywhere from your team because I felt like you guys just didn't know where anybody was going to be. You're just throwing everything at the net, and it was easy for Brandon to see that, which allowed him to give possession back to his team, who was, Sweet and Lasagna. I feel like there's a good connection no matter what. And then unfortunately, the secret weapon is K-Flow and Sweet. That's if those two get on a team, that's just instant connection. So you already have 3 players that have a great connection. So week 1 for them playing against anybody, I feel like they had the upper hand. So you guys, I feel like, have found your stride. Where you guys are on the stats sheet in the record board doesn't really reflect, I feel like, how your guys' games have been. I've called a couple of your games, and you guys look good in games. You play good, and Alex is a great goalie. However, you've just played against teams that have just been able to get the upper hand. With that being said, I feel like there's a good chance that you guys can kind of battle against Good Morning Vietnam this week, and show that week one was kind of more of a we were clicking phase. We were trying to figure it out phase. And get your get back. I know Good Morning Vietnam, they want to get back in that win column. Maybe they see this as their easy way to get back into it. And this is your guys' chance to prove it, prove yourselves and say, no, this isn't the easy W. And kind of get back in there. So I think I'm going to take Iron Thrones with this game. And I think I'm going to probably throw a 10-8 win for Iron Thrones.
Yeah, I think this one's going to be a tough one, and there's a lot to play for in this one. I actually mentioned earlier that there is some seeding implications with this week's matchups. First and foremost, going back to our game a little bit, Rob, the Masturbators will clinch the President's Trophy with a win this week. And if we don't win this week, we will clinch the President's Trophy with just one more win on the season. So something to think about for this week's matchup. But even more so with this Iron Thrones and Good Morning Vietnam matchup, Good Morning Vietnam, a lot to play for here because a win will put them back ahead of Iron Thrones, mostly because their tie record will be if Good Morning Vietnam wins, both teams will be 2-6. And Good Morning Vietnam has the next tiebreaker, which is head-to-head wins against one another. So it's an important game for the Thrones, too. And with that being said, I like Austin's team and the way that, like he said, they kind of figured things out at the end of that first one, and now they kind of wish they had that week one back to play it, to run it back, and now they're getting that chance. So I'd like to see those guys clicking. Austin, I'm going to personally challenge you. I want to see you playing with that confidence out there, guy. I've seen it. I know you've got it, and this is your week, man. Get out there, shine, and make it happen. Be that glue guy, be that Swiss Army knife, whatever player it takes to be the game changer on or off the stat sheet. So, I am going to take the Thrones in this one only because historically too, Alex plays pretty well against that sweet K-Flow combo you were talking about, Rob. He's played behind them before in net, but Helix for some reason, and I think maybe even Sweet would admit to this. Sweet, if you're listening in, put it on the comments on the chat. Does Alex have your number? Because I think he kind of has sometimes. I don't know, but I'm gonna take the Iron Thrones in this one. But I do think it's going to be a close game. I'm going to say that this game is going to be a little bit of a dog race too, and I'm thinking maybe like a 13-11, 14-12 kind of game. RFHL After Dark is going to be pretty crazy this week, so make sure you're sticking around and watching, whether it's on YouTube or on the stage.
Regarding what you just said about Alex and Sweet, I think you're spot on because I want to say it was last season. I had Sweet on the podcast, and I had one of the questions that was asked was players you don't look forward to playing against, and I'm pretty sure Sweet said Alex because for some reason Alex always has his number.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We've got a lot of great matchups, a lot on the line already for this week. A lot of tension for week 8, especially this this repeat go around against opponents. But hey, Rob, any last words for this week's podcast?
I do have just one last thing I did want to throw in there. We were mentioning the Hype Man Award or whatever. It got me kind of thinking. I really like this season, and I know we did it for the Hunger Games season as well. I do like this season how, since the goalies are captains, they had to elect an assistant captain.
Mm-hmm.
I almost wouldn't mind continuing that in general, regardless if if the captain was a goalie. I think it's kind of neat having an assistant captain because if the captain can't make it that week, you've got a designated person who is the go-to each week. And I think it'd be a really neat thing to just add in there. I mean, it wouldn't be anything special. You don't have to do anything crazy as far as stats or awards or anything. I just think it'd be kind of neat having the captain designate somebody to be their assistant captain.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I like that. Austin, any last comments about this week's podcast? Anything else you got to
Yeah.
say?
Retaping my stick in a different color. Hopefully that's what's going to help me finally score my first goal. I'm the only person in the league who has not scored a goal yet, and I'm getting hungry now.
Don't be shy.
Week.
Shoot the puck.
Yeah. This is your week. I know it. I got a feeling. I got a feeling.
So. I legit had a dream about it.
See, he's fully perfect. Okay,
dialed in.
That's perfect because I'm just gonna say this with puck dreams. He's having puck dreams of scoring goals in the RFHL. So with that, I'm gonna leave you with Austin. He's showing you fully that he's drinking that RFHL Kool-Aid. He's downed the whole pitcher of it. So Austin, I'm gonna leave it with you with the classic send-off. Let's hear it, buddy.
Is it Wednesday yet?
Well, that was good.